Hello everyone, welcome to Think Chatbot, a series where we try to build a chatbot within about 45 to an hour. Today I have Jacob helping me. How are you today, Jacob?
I'm good, thank you. Yep, still in the kitchen, still having to work through the smell of food as it's cooking towards dinner time, but other than that, I'm all right.
Nice. And I'm Alex. I'll be one of the hosts today. I'll be building a chatbot for you whilst Jacob sort of explains to me what he would like me to build. So this is typically the way it goes. Jacob comes up with a cool idea of something to build based on customer requirements or just random ideas that he's had in his kitchen, and then I try to build it. So what am I building today, Jacob?
So today, again, this one's also taken from one of our clients' stories, actually. So speaking to clients, it's a employee onboarding chatbot. So a lot of the onboarding process can be quite repetitive, mundane, take up a lot of time. Perfect thing for a chatbot to solve. And I've had a little look at their current onboarding process, simplified it a little bit, and I think we can kind of have a look at that and see if we can build a chatbot.
Okay, great. So I think you've prepared some sort of flowchart to have a look at as well. So I'll share my screen and then we can have a look at that and you can run us through it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it's a really simplified down version of what the client is currently dealing with for their onboarding process. But for the sake of time restraints, it's just quite simplified.
Okay, cool. Let's turn off the cameras so we're not too distracting for our viewers. And then let's have a look at that.
All right, perfect. Let's go.
Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. Can you see my screen?
Yep, can indeed.
Okay, perfect. So you've obviously sent me this before and I had a quick look to make sure you weren't asking me to build some sort of rocket ship or something like that. But could you run us through what you'd like me to build today?
Okay, yeah, of course. So this is, as I mentioned earlier, just taken from one of our clients. I'm not going to mention names for obvious reasons, but this is just their onboarding process in a kind of very simplified version for the sake of the video. When the clients have new employees, they kind of have two different types. They've got either the field agents, and then they've also got people in an office situation. So starting up at the top here with welcome to the company, they kind of like a nice friendly little welcome, something which is a bit jokey. And then the next step that the HR reps normally have to go through manually is they have to kind of gather employee information, which is everything from kind of job titles, salary, to their own internal requirements, whether they'll need a company car, that kind of thing. And from there, they also then like to kind of determine if they're a field or office worker. So again, this is the field agents, and how they kind of deal with that process, and the onboarding process changes from then in. So for field workers, they like to go straight into a health and safety video, whereas with office workers, they prefer to kind of get them booked in with IT, especially with home working at the moment, making sure they've got all the equipment they need, making sure they have printer logins, Wi-Fi logins, all of that kind of thing.
Okay, great. So based on this little flowchart, obviously this is the type of stuff that a business would work from before they even start building their bot. So this is really good. Typically, if a company joins ubisend, they will have some sort of processes in their mind that they want to actually start automating. And so one of the things that we usually tell them to do is, if you don't have it just yet, try to create a little flowchart of what you'd like this chatbot to do. This helps for a few things. It helps for visualizing what you're actually going to build once you get into the platform, which is great because you actually want this sort of representation of your chatbot, overarching representation of your chatbot before you go down to the nitty-gritty and actually build a conversation. But then it also allows you to keep track of what it is you're going to build to make sure it's not too complicated. So one of the things you want to be careful of is not to create a chatbot that's all-encompassing, that does everything, let's say everything in HR or everything in sales or everything in lead generation. You don't want to do that. And so by putting down your chatbot requirements on paper like this, you can sort of see, okay, the big picture. Yes, this is one big process that contains maybe 10, 20, 15 processes within it, but it's not too complex that it's just impossible to build. And so every now and then, clients will send us their flowchart just for us to have a cursory look and make sure that they're building something that makes sense. And in this instance, this completely makes sense. So should we try and start to build it?
Okay, I think we should just dive straight in.
Okay, perfect. So I'll rely on you to run me through the flow as I go, because obviously I'll start building. So you keep an eye on the Miro board, and you just tell me what you want me to do next. Okay, so this is an onboarding chatbot. So I've spun up a completely new ubisend install. So this is brand new. There's nothing in here, as you can see. There's no metrics or anything like that. There are no conversations except the basic conversations. So what do we want to do? So we want to start with probably creating the skeleton of the conversation. which is usually what I recommend someone would do. So to do so, obviously the ubisend platform is super simple to use. So I'll just go into the conversation builder. And then here, Jacob, as I usually say as well, there are quite a few conversations that are built by default. We won't look into those today because they don't really matter for now. But it's just good to know that there are a few in here that are pre-built for you, which handle certain bits and bobs around the chatbot platform and around your chatbot. So if you do get access to this, you can go in and have a look at what these do. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new conversation. Okay, so this is our employee onboarding conversation. So I'm just going to name it that. I can't type. Have you ever realized that you can't type when people are watching you?
Typing under pressure is always one of the worst things, isn't it?
Exactly. So a description for this. So I will usually give obviously a pretty descriptive description. That's the purpose of it. But this helps in the long run because you might have 20, 30, 40 conversations in here, and so and also there might be other people than yourself managing this platform. So it's quite nice to have a nice description. So in here, I'm going to type this conversation helps new employees submit their personal details and drives them to the right training session. So obviously we have 2 training sessions here towards the end, which Jacob was talking about. We have remind me, Jacob. So we have.
So we've got the kind of field health and safety video for their agents that are out in the field regularly. And then they've also kind of got a training session with IT, just kind of covering, like computer safety, antivirus, that kind of thing.
Perfect. Okay, so now we've created the name, or we've given it a name and a description, super simple. The first thing we want to start to think about here a little bit is the trigger. So obviously a trigger is, as its name implies, it's what triggers the conversation we're going to build right now. What's quite interesting is frequently a trigger can be anything. So if I click down on this drop down, you can see that there's a whole bunch of events that you can use to trigger things, to trigger conversations. So that could be a specific message, or visiting a specific URL, or live chat is successful. There's all sorts of things. So I'm going to scroll through here and you can read as I'm doing. So what we typically do, and what we've done previously in another Think Chatbot episode, was we were building, what we were building? A time off booking chatbot, weren't we? And so whilst we were building it, we basically built it around a user sending a specific keyword, which kind of made sense. But for this one, what's quite interesting is this is probably going to be the employee's first time using the bot ever. So you have to put yourself into the situation of, I'm a new employee here. I'm being told to sit at this desk and basically go and talk to the chatbot to finish your to start and finish your onboarding. So the chance that this is the very first time this person is talking to the bot is basically 100%. So what we could do is we could do something like user first uses the bot. So this would mean this is the very first time that someone uses the bot. This is what they'll see. This is quite interesting because it means that we can create this whole interaction around the onboarding of the user, and only the new employee will see it. And we could have other conversations around this on this same chatbot that would only be triggered for people who for whom it's not the first time using the bot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, indeed, it makes sense to me, definitely. And I think, especially with what a lot of our clients have been doing, is they've been having onboarding specific chatbots as well. So when, say, the trigger there, user first uses the bot, this won't trigger for, say, an employee you've had for kind of 5 years that's been at the company for a long time, that's just never used your chatbot, because this chatbot is specifically focused just to the new employees. Yeah,
definitely. And then by doing so, with all of these events, and we won't go too much into this, but with all of these events, that allows you to basically have a chatbot that's yes, doing one thing, but can also do a few more things that relate to this one goal that it has. So here it has this employee onboarding conversation, which is the very first one that this employee is going to use the chatbot for. But then we're going to also, as Jacob just showed in the flowchart, we're going to have to create 2 more conversations around are you a field worker or are you an office worker? And so by using these events in a smart way, we can actually create multiple conversations around the same chatbot without them necessarily interfering with each other. So for now, I'm just going to, for ease of, I clicked away. For ease of demoing the chatbot, and as we build it, we obviously want to test it quite frequently. I'm just going to do a message, because basically that allows me to trigger it many times in a row. Because obviously if I did first time using the bot, then obviously, I wouldn't be able to test it many times in a row. So let's just say that this one is going to start when I say onboarding. Okay, so does that make sense what I'm doing now? So I'm changing the trigger so that I can test it multiple times in a row, make sure that what I'm building is correct. And then once everything is correct, I'm going to change the trigger back to first time using the bot.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it all makes sense to me. My voice just going slightly there. Hopefully we'll be better at remembering the triggers than we were in our last video.
That should be all right. This time it's just one word, so that helps a little bit. Okay, cool. So the conversation is now created. So quick overview of what we're seeing here. We have obviously the trigger at the very top, which is what we've just set on the previous page. So message equals to onboarding. That's the trigger. This is repeated here, so that just for the ease of usage. And then there's a very first message that is pre-built in here. Obviously, it says just an example message, so we are going to have to edit that and make it better. Okay, so what should we do first, Jacob? You said, I think, something around being quite friendly and fun.
Yeah, so they just like kind of like a nice little welcome to the company. So nothing over the top, nothing fancy, but just kind of a nice warm welcome and a happy to have you with us type situation.
Okay, so should we send that GIF of the bear waving to the car?
I think I'm happy with that GIF.
I quite like it. We could do that, but we're serious people, so we're not going to do that. So the very first message or messages, I think we're going to create a couple of messages in here, should be welcome to the company. We're glad to have you here. This is the onboarding sequence. Please follow this attentively, as we will need all of this information. They're sort of crucial to the company. Yeah. So what do you think is going to be the first thing that we're going to ask the user to do?
I think I'm probably going to be wanting to kind of just triply clarify exactly their kind of role within the company. So it'd be kind of a job title or something like that. So like, what is your job title? Okay.
So here what I'm doing is I'm creating a new step after this welcome message. This step is going to be called what is your role? You can obviously change that title to whatever you'd like. This is absolutely internal. For now, I'm not going to change any of these features below the title, because what I want to do, and this is a running theme in our Think Chatbot series, is what I want to do is I want to create that skeleton first. I want to basically be able to recreate the flowchart that Jacob just showed us at the start into this conversation builder, and then I'll go into each message and make full use of all the amazing features that we have in the platform. So here I'm going to basically ask the user, what is your role at the company? Great. So we have one message, next message. Okay, what are we going to ask next?
So next, I think we should probably go down along the lines of, will you require a company car, or is a company car included within your kind of job description?
Okay, so same thing. I'm going to give it a title. I'm going to give it a message. Will you require a company car? Okay, I'm going to do it like this for now. We're going to edit this and make it better in a minute. And then maybe a third question, something valuable.
Yeah, cool. So another thing that they really do like to kind of pick up, using the client example here, that they like, sorry, my voice is going completely there. But that the client really likes to get is they just like to triply clarify the salary of the employee, because it kind of slightly changes how they kind of talk to them in the messages.
Okay, interesting. Salary, I guess. Okay, I'll do salary. Same thing. I'm not changing anything. How much do you no, that sounds a bit aggressive. What is your salary? I'm surprised that they're asking this. That's interesting, but we can do some cool things around that. And then I think one of the things that I know I need to do with my team is make sure that they give me, or that they give me their next of kin details. So what I might want to do is just from the get-go get next of kin phone number. Just for safety reasons again. What is your next of kin's phone number? So we won't ask for a name or anything like that, but it's just quite nice to ask for that. Okay. And then what happens? So then we have, I suppose, if I go back to the mirror board here, we've just done the welcome message. Obviously, we didn't go down deep in it, but we'll do that in a minute. Then we gathered employee information. Perfect. Now we want to do this branching of field versus office worker. Yeah.
Yep, indeed.
Perfect. So let's do that. Field or office worker. Okay. So I'm not going to do that. Are you a field or an office worker? Perfect. And here is where we'll have the branching between the two. So we can look at that in a minute. So would you say that this is the right structure so far?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're kind of welcoming them in and grabbing some kind of key information that the company needs, both in terms of a kind of employee perspective, and then again, as you mentioned, with the next of kin, kind of a nice kind of like little safety barrier for everybody to have there.
Okay, perfect. So what should we do first? Should we make it more relevant right now, and then we'll do the branching at the end? I think that's probably going to be good to go in that direction.
I think I agree with you. I think let's kind of fill this out a little bit. We'll kind of say bake the bottom layer of the cake, as so to speak, to use an expression there, and then we'll kind of move up to icing the cake as we go.
Okay, perfect. I usually only eat the icing, so okay. So the very first message is obviously this welcome message. So in here, what did I do? I just basically didn't do anything. This was pre-written before I even touched anything. So what we want to do is probably have some sort of welcome message. So hello. One thing that's quite nice in the platform is I could just add more messages here or more content. Welcome to the company. We're super glad to have you with us. Please go through this entire onboarding sequence, as all the information you provide is vital for your management team. Okay, so I guess this is a fairly simple first message. The thing I don't like, and you probably agree with me there, Jacob, is that it's all in this one big bubble. So it just looks a bit, I don't know, in my face. I don't like that. So what I could do instead is I could actually add more messages below here. So what I've done is I've basically just cut those sections of the message, and I'm just using this add new button here on the right to just basically add more messages below. So it sort of breaks down this interaction a little bit more. Would you agree that this looks a bit better?
Yeah, definitely. I think it kind of fits the kind of the human nature of using like kind of like instant messaging apps as well. Like I know myself, for example, I definitely send more than one message on a lot of occasions rather than say typing out quite a long paragraph. So it makes it feel a bit more natural for the end user. Yeah,
I mean, if I had to read all of the messages you send me in one message, I think I'd need 3 screens just to sort of get that big bubble on Slack or something. I don't know, it would be impossible. But you're completely right that the point here is the conversational UX around this interaction is you want to replicate to a certain extent, so we won't go too much into that, but you want to replicate an actual chat interaction with a friend or with someone that you would have an actual one-to-one chat interaction with. So you don't want to recreate an entire email. So the message I had before, for instance, would be a long email, which would be fine. But in this instance, we want to have this more sort of fun interaction. Okay, so this is the first message. Perfect. We probably want to ask some sort of a confirmation here from the user, saying something like, again, we want to be conversational. So I'm probably going to ask something like, are you ready to start? Just asking questions, always nice for a conversational chatbot. You don't want to ask too many open-ended questions, but this is fairly simple. Are you ready to start? Yes or no? Simple. Okay, so now if I close this, I have this beautiful first message that's all set up. So should we quickly go and have a look at what this looks like? Okay, so, okay, that's interesting. So I just went into the demo section of the bot, And here we're presented with this message, which is actually quite cool. It's something that our developers have put in somewhat recently, but it basically says, welcome to your new bot, read the documentation, so learn how to use this, add this welcome message, or create a new conversation. It's basically a little bit of an engagement play on the ubisend part to make sure that before you actually build your whole chatbot, you actually go and do the basic stuff. So here, we're going to just ignore this for now. I might actually just go and edit it just so that it's done. So here I have a conversation called welcome to your chatbot, and this is basically where this interaction is done. And so I'm just going to go and change this so that it doesn't say any of that. I'm going to do a standard message.
So just to confirm with this here, that's just purely for internal use there. That's just so when somebody first logs into the platform and they head over to demo, the client kind of knows what to do, the first few couple steps and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do welcome to the onboarding chatbot. Actually, it would make a lot more sense to do this onboarding sequence right here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do exactly that. So this is where we do things live for you. So where did I do? What did I do? I said blah, 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 blah. I said all of this. Okay, so I can go back to my welcome to the chatbot interaction. I can change that again, and I can do a standard message. I'm going to copy that here, and I'm going to do basically recreate the whole first interaction. Okay, save that. Okay, save that. Oops. Save that. And save that. And this. Are you ready to start? Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this one into a action message. And then this is going to send, oops. It's going to send a little postback message. Yes. Onboarding. No. Oh. Okay, so what I've done here is basically I've transferred all of the introduction message to the actual welcome to your chatbot interaction, which is something that can be quite helpful to have if you, again, this is a brand new chatbot, so I basically have to go back to the basics and build everything from zero. And in here, I've basically changed the welcome to your chatbot interaction to this interaction, to this conversation, which is quite helpful because then I can just ask yes or no, and based on what they say, what the user says, they're going to be sent to either the onboarding conversation, which I've just created with you, or I've at least created a skeleton of it, or it's going to send them to help, which I obviously haven't created just yet, but I can just save this, and later on I can create a help conversation if I need to. Okay, so as you can see, this one is pre-built for when the user first uses the bot. Okay, let's restart this. All right, cool. So now this should actually start working. So I'm going to go back to my conversation and I'm going to delete that very first message because obviously we don't need that anymore. Perfect. Okay, so if I go into my conversation now, welcome to the company. We're super stoked to have you with us. Please go through this entire onboarding sequence, as all of the information you provide here is vital for your management team. And now if I click yes, it's going to start asking me these questions that we've set up earlier. Okay, so we've done all of that. That's perfect. What we probably want to do is go back and do what we've done for the first message, but for the other messages, and just start to basically make it a little bit nicer, a bit more conversational. Still following with us?
Yep, still with you, don't worry.
Very good. Okay, so the very first question is, what is your role at the company? Would you say that this is an okay format for this question?
I think because this is kind of like quite a quick and simple one, I actually think this is probably an okay-ish format because obviously we can kind of add a bit more kind of personality or formalness down the line. Okay.
And then there's a transition here between this message and the very next message. So as you can see here, there's obviously this little arrow that goes from this node to the next node. And then there's this little bubble here, or this little square, probably not a square, this is a rectangle, that basically says when a message is sent, go to this next step. So what's happening here is that the transition between the two messages, so between what is your role and company car, only requires the human to send a message. So if you remember in the at the very start of the session, what we basically looked at, it was this trigger part of the chatbot, which is this event that needs to happen for the conversation to start, which is in this case the trigger for this whole conversation is someone saying the word onboarding. Here, transitions sort of act in a very similar way. So you can use all of the same events to transition between messages in a bot. So the idea here is that I could say only transition to the next step if the user, let's say, well, I wouldn't probably say that, but only transition to the next step if live chat is available, or only transition to the next step if the user sends a message that is equal to a phone number or an email address. So we can create quite complex conversations between, or at least quite complex transitions between two messages, just to be quite thorough and create something that's really, really unique for this experience. For this particular instance, obviously we're asking someone for their role. So that could be, I don't know, marketing manager, or it could be a builder, or it could be anything. So we don't really want to put too much restrictions around what it is that the user is going to reply. So what we're probably going to do is we're going to leave it as a message is sent, because again, it could be anything. But we'll see later on that we can actually start using different little transitions there, or different little validations to make sure that the users are actually sending the information that the chatbot is requiring them to send. Okay, so to transition from your role to what is your, when you require a company car, we just basically need the user to respond to this message, which is perfect. Okay, so company car, talk to me. What do you need? What do you need this to be?
So obviously, with Will You Require a Company Car, it's something that you might have new employees that would actually quite like a company car, but are not actually entitled one due to their current job role. So I think it would be quite nice in a way if we can kind of have a few drop downs, which is, yes, my job role consists of X, such as say, like constantly traveling on the road for work and that kind of thing. Or no, my job role does not consist of any of these activities, just to kind of give a little bit more kind of structure to it and to make sure no one's trying to get a company car involved when maybe they weren't quite entitled to one.
Okay, so that's interesting. So this is the type of stuff that would come out in the creation of this framework that you did earlier on, and that we walked through on Miro. You would typically try to understand what is the use case here. How will people actually request a car? Would it be something that actually people will do? What's more likely to happen is that someone is going to join the company and they're going to be, let's say, a sales representative, and based on that job role, the company will know that this person needs a car. And so what's probably going to happen is the bot, if configured properly, based on the answer from the previous question, as in what is your job role, the bot will know, okay, this is the CEO, let's actually give him a car because they need cars, because they're fancy. Or this is the marketing executive, and his job is just to stay at the office. He doesn't need a car. So we'll have this sort of branching in the previous message. But what we can do here, because we obviously don't have time to do this integration and a whole sort of database that tells us who needs a car and who doesn't, what we could probably do is ask the user to tell us whether the car is in his or her contract. So we can still use a little bit of conversational technology here. We can also use a couple more features around buttons and nice flow buttons. But we're not going to necessarily go down the rabbit hole of saying, yes, I would like a car because X, Y, Z, and a lot of interaction. Can I please request a car, please? I really want a car type thing. Because this would be the type of stuff that would be potentially outside of the scope of a chatbot here, because it could really go down into massive rabbit holes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it's really good to know that kind of like what you should be leaving your chatbot kind of in capable hands, and when you should maybe be restricting a conversation for human agents.
Absolutely. So that's a good way to put it. So if you as a marketing executive were to ask the chatbot for a car, what's quite likely is that you don't necessarily want your chatbot to give away cars to employees. So what you probably want to do is create a sort of conversation around, okay, it sounds like you want to request a car from us. Please give me a little bit more information about you. So this would be a completely different conversation. And based on that, it's going to send this request to an HR manager or someone who's in charge of the fleet of cars that this company would have. And this person, a human, would probably make the decision based on, well, Jacob is a marketing executive. He definitely doesn't need a car. He just wants to be fancy. Or actually, yeah, Jacob does, live very far away. And based on what he has told us, a car might make sense because he does go to a lot of clients and things like that. Does that make sense? So you do want to have this sort of fallback to human and not let the bot do everything. You do want to have sometimes this aspect of, well, the bot is going to step aside, gather all of the information, but step aside and let someone in charge make big decisions like landing a car to someone. Particularly a new employee, that'd be quite fun.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably quite a few people out there that would like chatbots that just give away cars, but I imagine from a financial perspective, you might not be the most sustainable business model there.
Yeah, I mean, I could build it. If someone pays for the car, I could build a chatbot if you want. Okay, does your job role require? I said the sentence in a really eloquent way earlier. So what did I say? Do you get a car as part of your employment contract with us? Oops, with us. Okay, and so here, based on this, obviously the answer is yes or no, or I don't know. It could be a third answer. So what we want to do here is present the user with a couple of buttons. This is just the easiest way to do things. Quite typically, people will, chatbot builders might stay away from buttons, thinking it's not smart enough. But really what you want to do is, by having buttons, you actually drive the conversation in one simple way, which is quite often the best way to do it. You want to think about the UX. You don't want to think about the really cool technology that you're using that figures out that yes means yes. Amazing. No one really cares about that. What they want to do is move through things quite quickly because these people have a job to do and they don't have time to wait for that. So what I could do is I could say yes, no, or obviously I don't know. Okay, so based on this, the bot is going to log these information, and if the person says yes or no, obviously that's just going to be logged. If the person says I don't know, the bot could potentially, let's say, onboard them later on into a different conversation like we just discussed to say, okay, well, maybe we should have a look at this and decide. Okay, all of this for this one message, but at least we went through quite a few things here. Okay. And then obviously transition to the next message. We just need the user to send us a message. Perfect. What is your salary? So how do you want us to phrase this?
So I think it's probably quite nice to kind of go about this in a kind of quite a gentle way, but also quite direct. It's a question that just needs a simple answer really. So you can kind of go through this quite quickly with just a simple way.
Okay. So we could probably say, what is your annual salary in pounds? Okay. And so this will just require the user to send a message. What we might want to do here is actually transition based on, I forgot to save this. What is your annual salary in pounds? Okay, so I'm going to save this. And then what we could probably do here is, as I've said before, for now, we've only done transitions based on just a message being sent. What we could do here is we could actually specifically request the user to send a number. So we don't want them to send, I don't know, because I don't remember, I didn't remember what my contract says or something like that. Or I think it's about 1,500 and whatever. We actually want them to just send a number. So I'm going to save this as a transition that requires a number. And then what I could do as well is a little bit of validation. So obviously we're asking them to send us a number, but what happens if they don't send a number? So here I click the not button here, which basically means that if they send something, anything that is not a number, the bot is going to say something to basically realign the conversation to actually, you do need to send me just a number, please. Please send me your salary as a number, whatever. Does that make sense, the validation aspect?
Yeah, it all makes sense to me.
Perfect. And so as you can see, the previous one was when a message is sent. Now it's changed to when the message is a number. Okay. And now we can say, okay, what is the next of kin number? For safety reasons, I need to log your next of kin's phone number. What is it? This is not written very well, but this will do. So obviously we want, I'm using two buttons here, or two bubbles here. I just think it's quite nice. You don't want to have a long sentence and then a question within the same thing. So I'm going to save that. And here we're going to do something very similar to what I just did before. So we're going to ask if the message is a phone number. So this is another option we have as well. So in this instance, we're going to not just ask for any number. It has to be a phone number format. Same thing, we can do a bit of validation here. So if the message is a phone number, is not a phone number, please enter a valid phone number. So this is just going to do a bit of validation on the message that the user sends to the bot.
Yeah, so this is in the exact same way of, you know, when like you're entering your email address in a hurry because you've forgotten to buy a birthday present and you type it out wrong and then you get a message that it says, that's not a valid email address. It's the exact same format.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, exactly that. Okay, and then obviously this transition has changed to is a phone number. Perfect. Should we go through this whole conversation and see what happens?
Yeah, I think so. And just before we begin as well, I had a quick question come in not too long ago, and they were just asking about, say, how set in stone are these conversations? Like you can kind of nip in and edit them on the fly. Should something change at your company or your processes change?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a ubisend license holder or a user on the platform, which your company or your boss or whatever might have purchased for you, you basically have access to all of the features yourself. And you can nip in and out when and how as you need it. So you can obviously edit every single message like I'm doing right now, but you can do much more than that, which we're not going to necessarily go into today, but you can do sort of FAQs, you can do integrations, you can do all sorts of things. I guess the one caveat to this is you do need the right permissions to do some things. So if you've maybe have noticed that on this page, for instance, I have a whole bunch of conversations here that are locked. As you can see, they're sort of grayed out, which basically means that me as a super admin of this account, I can go and unlock them or lock them, but and admins would have the same access, but vanilla users under me, so maybe my employees or something like that, wouldn't be able to edit these conversations. And so this is just sort of a fail-safe aspect of the platform if you don't want employees who don't necessarily know how to use the platform to mess around with your conversations. So you might need the right permissions to do things, but based on your permissions, you basically have access to everything. So you don't need ubisend, you don't need us, you don't need experts and pay us a lot of money to do anything. The platform is completely self-serve for you to use. Hopefully that makes sense to the lovely person who asked this question. Okay, so let's go through this. So obviously the first message is, hello, welcome to the company, blah, blah, blah. Are you ready to start? I'm going to click this yes button, which basically sends in the background, it sends that onboarding text. Okay, what is my role at the company? What do I fancy being today? Let's say sales executive. I don't know why. Maybe Jamie will be annoyed that I'm going for his job. Do you get a car as part of your employment contract with us? I think I do. I'm pretty sure I do. So I'm going to say yes. What is your annual salary in pounds? Okay, well, it is £97,000.
So quite a nice, well-paid sales executive we've got there.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Okay, for safety reason, I need to log your next of kin's phone number. What is it? I don't remember. I think it's 079. No. So So let's see what happens if I say that. Okay, so here comes the validation aspect of it. So we've asked the user, as in myself here, to enter a valid phone number or to enter a phone number. And what I've done is I've just put some random text here. And the bot recognizes that this random text is not actually a phone number. And so it's basically redirecting me to entering something that's actually valid. So it's like, okay, please enter a valid phone number. All right, my phone number is this. Perfect. And now it's asking me this final question, which we haven't set up yet. Okay, so as you can see, what we've built here is a very, very simple first interaction with the chatbot. This is the bare bones of your typical onboarding chatbot, employee onboarding chatbot. Typically, an employee, and Jacob can attest to that, and everyone else who's watching this video, as a new employee, you typically have to log in somewhere and start adding your details to an endless number of forms, or you have to go and sit for 45 minutes with an actual HR employee who has much better things to do than to listen to you talk about your next of kin's phone number. So instead, what you can do here is, with a simple interaction on the chatbot, on the ubisend platform, you can create a chatbot that's going to do all of that for you and take away all of that time that is spent on something completely routine and that can be automated, and give you your time back to do something else that's more valuable and helpful to the company. So I'm conscious that we're 30-ish minutes in, so let's try and finish this conversation. So obviously we have ended this conversation with, are you a field or office worker? So what we want to do here probably is change this message and have two different options here. So we want to add these postback buttons. Postback buttons are what I've used earlier on. So it's basically when you click this button, it's going to send a little bit of a code back to the chatbot to tell the chatbot this is what the user needs to do. So it's a bit of it's almost like a keyword, but it's not really that. It's almost like a keyword. So here we could say, I'm a field worker, or I'm an office worker. Okay, so here we're going to create a little postback button called field worker. And here we're going to create a little postback button called office worker. Does that make sense so far? So we're basically creating this question and then giving them two options, and based on what they respond, it's got the bot, as we click the button, the bot is going to receive either this little keyword or this little keyword.
Yeah, so I suppose those keywords almost act as signposts for the chatbot of where to take the user next. It's a bit like turn left or turn right in a way, depending upon the answer.
Precisely. So here what I could do is I could create actually another node under this specific node with the next message, depending on whether or not I'm a field or an office worker. That's completely fine, and that's a completely valid way to do it, but it's not a very scalable way to do it. What I'd like to do is I would like to instead create different conversations depending on who I am, who the bot is talking to. So if you imagine here that a field worker might want to have, like Jacob said, some sort of health and safety video, but then there's probably 5, 6, 7 other steps that you might want to do to onboard a field worker, which will be completely different to 5, 6, 7, 8 steps that you want to do for office workers. And so if you start building these within the same conversation, what happens quickly is that you just lose track of what's doing what, and it just all gets very complicated. So the way we do things instead is that from this point on, we're going to onboard the user into a different conversation based on what they've clicked. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the conversation builder, and I'm going to create a new conversation. So here we're going to onboard a field worker. This conversation helps field workers, helps onboarding field workers to the company. Okay, so this one is going to be solely based on field workers. By doing this, I can make sure that this whole conversation is extremely relevant for these people, and it doesn't need to just be sort of adapted and work for several different type of people. And this is just best practices, really. We have obviously a lot of very many years of experience. I don't want to say how many because it makes me very old, but we have very many years of experience in this field of building chatbots, and this is the right way to do it. So in here, we want to do this. We're going to trigger this conversation specifically only when a message is sent to the chatbot that is equal to field worker. So here's the little keyword that I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to save that. And we sort of go through the same process that we did earlier. So would you be able to send me a health and safety type of video or something like that?
Yeah, of course. It's one of those, here's one I stole off YouTube earlier situations.
You didn't steal anything. You're just copying the link of a video that is absolutely public and we're completely free to use. Okay, so the very first message is welcome, or whatever, we can call that whatever. And we're going to say, okay, great to have you. And then we're going to add another message. Please watch this health and safety video before going out in the field. And then I'm going to add this little video that you sent me. Let's have a look. Perfect. Copy that. Thank you, Jacob. And so here, so far we've sent standard messages, we've sent messages with buttons, but what we can do here is if I click here, you can see that there's a whole bunch of different message types that I can use. And here there's one called video. So I think that Jacob sent me it's a YouTube link. So I'm going to copy that. And I could add a little message here. Don't skip this. Okay. And I can save this. All right. Now, this is where I'm going to end it for this particular conversation, because we're sort of running out of time and I need to create the other part of the conversation. But as you can see, I've just added one message, which has one node, which has 3 messages in a row, including a video. Make sense so far?
Yep, all makes sense to me. So you've onboarded a field worker and they've received a nice video about health and safety training. Perfect.
Yep, exactly that. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the exact same thing for office worker, an office worker. I mean, this brings me back a little bit to the Office US series, but office workers don't necessarily need a health and safety video. So what would they get?
So I think a lot of the time when you're working in an office, IT is a big thing. Obviously, you need to have a computer, make sure that your chair kind of fits, make sure all the technology is working, and also you want to make sure they've got the right antivirus software already on their machines and stuff. This is something that I think is especially growing with kind of remote working, because people will be working on laptops and all sorts.
Okay, so do you think that this should be done with a face-to-face meeting, or do you think this should be done? How do you think this should be done?
I think probably, I think a meeting is probably going to be the easiest way, because then you can have someone from IT kind of guide you through the process and kind of just either hop onto your screen and make sure everything's in order, or just kind of talk you through it.
Okay, sounds good. So I would say that probably, it's a good question. I think I would, if it was me, I would try to automate as much as possible of that process, because you can, this person is obviously already on a computer, a company computer, because they're using this bot. So they might not need a new computer, but you could probably go through a couple of questions like, can you check that your antivirus is up and running by clicking here and XYZ, and then confirm yes. So you can do a whole bunch of things here to automate even further from what we're going to build here. But obviously, this is all just an example. So for this example, what we're going to do is we're going to book an actual meeting. We're going to book an actual meeting with an IT person. So great. Glad to have you with us. Okay, I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to add to set you up properly, you will need to speak to someone in IT to make sure you don't break our precious computers. Okay, and I'm going to add another message. So this other message is going to be simply a date and time picker. So what I want to do is I want to tell the user, I want to tell my employee, I can put you in touch with Steve in HR. You're just going to need to tell me when you want to go and meet him. When would you be available? Pick a time below. Oops, below. No, below. Perfect. Okay, so what I can do here is I can actually change the composer type to a date and time picker. So here so far, we've only ever used a message, which is essentially just text or videos or images. But here we can actually also set up date time or date or time. And this we're going to look at in a minute, but it basically allows the user to just click a button and have a really nice UI, allowing them to book a time and date. Okay, I'm going to save this. Perfect. So now we have 3 conversations and we can just give it a try. Okay, I am ready to start. This is my first day at the company. Let's go and have a look. So obviously I just said yes. What is my role at the company? So for now, I'm going to be a field worker. So I'm a surveyor. Okay, do you get a car as part of your employment contract? Yep, because I need to go through a lot of properties. What is your annual salary? Let's do something more, maybe a bit more normal. I don't really know what the going salary for a surveyor is, but let's just say 35,000. And then for safety reasons, I need to log your next of kin's phone number. So let's say that I can actually read and I know what to do here. So I'm going to do, this is her phone number. Perfect. So now he's asking me, am I a field or an office worker? So obviously I'm a surveyor. I want to be a field worker. So now by clicking this button, it's sending me to this other conversation that we just built. Okay, great to have you. Please watch this video, health and safety video, before going in the field. So as you can see, I can play the video straight from the chat. Hopefully this is an actual health and safety video, or it's not like, I don't know, you just rickrolled me or something like that. Don't skip this. So I've just received this message. I'm going through the video, and then we can imagine how this whole conversation would move forward with other things, like, again, maybe booking some type of meetings, or figuring out where your first job is, or uniform fitting, all that sort of stuff, whatever it could be. Okay, so I've gone down one route. Let's go down the other route. So let's start again. Yes, I'm ready to be onboarded. And now I'm going to be a office worker. So let's say I'm an accountant. Okay, I do not have a car for this. I just go to the office and I sit there all day, which is nice. And an accountant, I'm going to say, is getting paid the same amount of money as a surveyor, because again, I have no idea. Next of kin phone number, let's do this. And now I'm an office worker. So if I set this up properly, it should take me down the other conversation, and it's being very slow. Yep, I completely messed up that keyword thing. I'm going to go back.
So that's what live videos are for, you know, everyone's human. Everyone makes the odd mistake.
Oops, I went on the wrong conversation. What did I set up as the post back? That's where I messed up. So I've messed up by doing officer worker. That doesn't make sense.
So just to clarify, what's happened here is the little signal that tells the chatbot which route to take the user down. Just a slight typo error there.
Exactly. Yeah. I just wrote down a typo on the actual trigger. So it's nothing technical. It's just humans being humans, which is why we automate this type of stuff. Accountant. Let's start this again. No, I do not have a car. I'm getting paid £35,000 a year. I'm getting, this is my partner's phone number. And I'm an office worker. Come on, no typo this time. Perfect. Glad to have you with us. To set you up properly, you will need to speak to someone in IT to make sure you don't break our precious computers. When will you be able to join this sort of meeting? And as you can see here, where I would usually be able to type some sort of free text, now I actually have a little text that says click to choose a time and date. So if I click this, today is the 26th of November, I can just go and say, I don't want to do this until Monday because I'm busy for now. And I'm going to do this at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because that's quite a nice time to finish. Quite a nice thing to do to finish my day. And I can send that. And now obviously I have nothing set up after this, so the bot is just not really understanding what to do next with this. I didn't really complete this conversation properly, but you get the idea. I've just picked the time and date. This is now being sent to our IT department with whatever integration I could have set up. And this is basically the bot that you wanted us to build. So we did I think we did everything. We had a welcome message. We have information gathering. We have a little branching between field and office workers, and field workers get a safety video. Office worker book time with IT. Is that everything you wanted?
I believe so. That kind of obviously in quite a simplified version for the sake of the video. I think that kind of covers everything that a lot of our clients have been going through.
Sorry.
I would also add there as well that with the kind of the booking the meeting tool integration, we do have another video which kind of came out not too long back where we look at kind of actually sending off an email or anything along those lines, just to kind of so you can add it into your own departments and you can kind of see how the integrations work from that side of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was going to say that to end this video, I guess there is so much here that we didn't touch on in terms of building this chatbot in a much more deep and meaningful way for your employees. Obviously, here I'm trying to build this in 40 minutes and quite quickly, and so if this was your actual project, you would go quite a lot more in depth in here. And probably what you would want to do is create more intricate conversations for different workers. So you might want to do office worker and what's the other one? Field workers. But you might also want to have some sort of different conversations if the person who's being onboarded is the new CEO, or if it's an intern. You might want to do some sort of different conversations there. You might want to also do the whole conversations around the company car thing. You could do conversations around the salary, where if someone says £3 million, maybe you want to say, well, that doesn't sound quite right. So there's a lot you could do here. Based on our company, we know that we actually ask our new employees quite a lot of information. So here I've just asked maybe 5 questions, but some of our users actually have onboarding sequences that are 20, 25, 30 questions long, just to automate all of that for them. The other thing I would do is if this was a real bot that I wanted to build, I would create some sort of integration. So you'll want to have this integration to your SuccessFactor or to your employee portal, to maybe a calendar or appointment booking for this whole IT thing. So there's a whole lot of things that you could do here. And then obviously I do the usual adapting the chatbot view and all that sort of stuff, because here the logo is broken, for instance, and it's all pink / purple, which is the ubisend brand. So you obviously want to change all of that. But even more than that, I might even look at channels. So where do I want this chatbot to live? Maybe I want it on a full page somewhere on the website, which is something that I could do if I wanted to. If I wanted to, I could have a full page chatbot. At the moment, it's just a small little widget chatbot. So there's a whole lot of things that you could do here if you wanted to take this further. We also didn't touch on anything around FAQs, which is quite popular around onboarding employees. So if the employee has some questions around, I don't know, lunchtime, or how much time they have for break at lunch, or who should they speak to, who's their manager, that sort of stuff. You can create a whole bunch of knowledge-based type FAQs, which could be very helpful for them as well. So we didn't get to touch on any of this, Jacob. I'm sorry. I just hopefully built the right conversation you wanted here.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with the conversation, and I understand obviously there's so much that you can do. It kind of becomes quite difficult to restrict yourself in a way. Otherwise we'd end up with kind of a series of like 9-hour-long videos with the most fancy onboarding chatbot known to man, but probably not many viewers left by the end of the nine hours.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you everyone for attending this Think Chatbot event. As usual, we run these usually weekly or bi-weekly. So make sure you join our page, ubisend.com/drop-in, to join the next one live if you're watching this as a recording. If you'd like to make sure that you don't miss any of these recordings, you can just go to our YouTube channel and make sure that you subscribe. You'll get a little notification saying that we have something new and exciting to watch. Any last words, Jacob?
No, I think you've covered everything there. But yeah, once again, obviously, thank you everybody for watching, and thank you for your time as well, Alex. Kind of sharing a bit of your chatbot expertise with us there.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Bye.